The Israelites, God's chosen people, were in chains. For years, the Philistines had ruled over them. Their enemies were cruel. They mocked the Israelites' God. Their faith was tested. Hope seemed lost. But God had not forgotten his people. He heard their cries. He saw their suffering. He would send a deliverer, a champion, a judge. An angel appeared to a woman named Manoah's wife. She was barren, unable to have children. The angel brought a message. You will conceive and give birth to a son. He will be a Nazirite, dedicated to God from birth. He will begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines. The child was named Samson. He grew strong. God blessed him with incredible power. It was a sign. Samson was destined for greatness. He was the answer to his people's prayers. Samson journeyed to Timnah, a Philistine city. He saw a Philistine woman. He desired her. He wanted to marry her. Despite knowing the tension between their peoples, his heart was set. His parents protested. Why choose a wife from their enemies? They reminded him of the dangers and the cultural divide. But Samson was determined. On his way to Timnah, he was resolute, his mind filled with thoughts of the woman he desired. Suddenly, a lion attacked. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson, filling him with immense strength. With his bare hands, he tore the lion apart. It was a feat of incredible power, a testament to his divine strength. Later, he returned to the lion's carcass. The memory of his victory still fresh in his mind. A swarm of bees had built a hive inside. It was an unusual sight, nature reclaiming the remains. He took the honey. It was sweet, a rare treat in the wilderness. At his wedding feast, Samson posed a riddle to 30 Philistine men. It was a challenge, a test of wit and wisdom. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. The riddle puzzled them deeply. They could not solve it. They threatened his wife, desperate for the answer. If she did not tell them the answer, they would burn her and her father's house. The threat was real and terrifying. She wept before Samson. Her tears and pleas wore him down. He relented and told her the answer. She betrayed him. The Philistine men shouted, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" They had won through deceit. Samson was enraged. He had been tricked. He had broken his Nazirite vow by touching the dead lion, a sacred promise now shattered. And his own wife had betrayed him. He knew then that he could not trust the Philistines. The betrayal cut deep, altering his path forever. Samson sought revenge. He caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs, attaching a burning torch to each pair. He released them into the Philistines' fields. The fields were consumed by fire, along with their vineyards and olive groves. The Philistines were furious. They sought retribution. They attacked the Israelites and burned Samson's wife and her father to death. Samson's anger burned hotter. He struck down the Philistines with a mighty blow, slaughtering many. He then took refuge in the rock of Etam. The Philistines pursued him. They demanded the Israelites hand Samson over. They bound him with ropes. They thought they had him. They celebrated their victory too soon. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson. His muscles bulged. The ropes snapped like thread. He grabbed the jawbone of a donkey, a lowly weapon. With it, he struck down 1,000 Philistines. He piled their bodies high. Samson's exploits became legendary. His name struck fear into the hearts of the Philistines. They sought to capture him, to end his reign of terror. They learned he was in Gaza, seeking pleasure in the city. They surrounded the city, lying in wait. They thought they had him trapped, but they underestimated Samson's strength. At midnight, he rose. He approached the city gate. The gates were massive, barred and bolted shut. With a mighty roar, he tore the gates from their hinges. He carried them away on his shoulders. He carried them to the top of a nearby hill. He left them there, a testament to his power. The Philistines were humiliated. They had failed to contain the mighty Samson. Section 5. Delilah's Deception. Samson fell in love again. This time it was Delilah, a woman from the valley of Sorek. She was beautiful, alluring, and treacherous. Her beauty was matched only by her cunning. The Philistine rulers approached her with a devious plan. They offered her a fortune. All she had to do was discover the secret of Samson's strength. Delilah agreed without hesitation. She pretended to love Samson, showering him with affection and tender words. She begged him to tell her his secret, pleading with him day and night. "How can you say you love me when you don't share your secrets with me?" she would ask, her eyes filled with feigned sincerity. Time and again Samson misled her, giving her false answers to test her loyalty. He told her his strength would leave him if he were tied with fresh bowstrings. She tied him, but he broke free effortlessly. Then he said his strength would leave him if he were bound with new ropes. She bound him, but he broke free once more. He even told her his strength would leave him if his hair were woven into a weaver's loom. She wove his hair, but he broke free again. Each time the Philistine soldiers lay in wait, ready to seize him, but each time Samson easily escaped their grasp. Despite all the signs, Samson remained blind to Delilah's deception. He was blinded by his love for her, unable to see the truth. His heart, filled with love, clouded his judgment. He trusted her completely, not realizing the danger he was in. Delilah's persistence and Samson's love created a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with each day bringing them closer to a tragic end. The stakes were high and the tension grew with each passing moment. Delilah's deception was a ticking time bomb, ready to explode. The Philistines grew impatient and Delilah's resolve hardened. She knew she had to succeed, no matter the cost. The final act of this drama was about to unfold, with Samson unaware of the betrayal that loomed over him. Love and betrayal intertwined, leading to an inevitable and heartbreaking conclusion. Samson's love for Delilah was his greatest strength and his ultimate weakness. In the end, it was this love that would seal his fate. Finally, Delilah's persistence paid off. Worn down by her constant nagging, Samson revealed the truth. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he confessed, "because I have been a Nazirite, dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me and I would become as weak as any other man." She knew she finally had him. While he slept in her lap, she called for a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. His strength left him. She woke him, crying out that the Philistines were upon him. He arose to fight, but he was as weak as a newborn. The Philistines seized him. They gouged out his eyes. They took him to Gaza, their prize captive, parading him through the streets as a symbol of their triumph. They bound him in bronze shackles, the cold metal biting into his skin, a constant reminder of his fall from grace. They forced him to grind grain in the prison, a humiliating task for a once mighty warrior now reduced to menial labor. But as Samson toiled, his hair began to grow again, unnoticed by his captors, a silent testament to his enduring spirit. His strength, however, did not return, not yet. He remained weak, his body weary from the relentless labor. One day the Philistine lords gathered in the temple of their god, Dagon, a grand structure filled with their followers. They were celebrating their victory over Samson, their voices echoing through the halls in a cacophony of triumph. They brought him out to entertain them. They mocked him. They taunted him, reveling in his misery and downfall. They praised their God for delivering their enemy into their hands, attributing their success to divine intervention. Blind and bound, Samson stood before them, a shadow of his former self, yet still defiant in spirit. He asked the boy, leading him to let him touch the pillars that held up the temple, a seemingly innocent request. He wanted to rest for a moment, to gather his thoughts and strength, leaning heavily against the cold stone. The boy agreed, unaware of what Samson intended. Samson prayed, his heart heavy with regret and hope. He prayed to the God he had so grievously disobeyed. He prayed for strength. He prayed for vengeance, his voice a whisper in the chaos. "Remember me," he cried out to God, his voice rising above the din of the crowd, a plea for one last chance. "Strengthen me just once more, O God, that I may with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." His muscles tensed, his resolve unwavering. Samson's story is a tragedy. He was blessed with extraordinary gifts, chosen by God to deliver his people. Yet he succumbed to his weaknesses. He let his desires control him. He broke his vows. He trusted the wrong people. His story serves as a cautionary tale. We learn the importance of obedience. God gives us gifts, talents, and opportunities, but we must use them responsibly. We must use them for His glory. When we stray from His path, when we give in to temptation, we risk losing everything. We also learn about the consequences of sin. Sin has a way of ensnaring us. It promises pleasure, but delivers pain. It promises freedom, but delivers bondage. It promises life, but delivers death. Samson's story reminds us that sin always has a price. Yet, Samson's story is not without hope. Even in his darkest hour, even when he was blinded, imprisoned, and humiliated, he found redemption. He turned back to God, he acknowledged his failings, he asked for forgiveness, and God, in his infinite mercy, answered his prayer. Samson's final act was not one of despair, but of faith. He sacrificed himself to defeat his enemies and save his people. He teaches us that it is never too late to turn back to God. No matter how far we have strayed, no matter how great our sins, God is always willing to forgive us. Samson's story reminds us that true strength is not found in physical prowess, but in our relationship with God. It is in our weakness that His strength is made perfect. It is when we acknowledge our need for Him that He can work through us.